Yo, it's Tuesday evening, just after 6 p.m. This is a spiritual discussion program, and this is Saad here in the studio in London. And I'm going to be joined by my two colleagues, Gregory and Mena. Let me put them online now. And the weather here in London tonight is, it's been quite good today. No rain. And right now the sun is setting, actually. So it's lovely, sort of, I will call it the sunset colors like orange, cream, and so on. Let me put on also my colleague Mena, who's going to be there. Gregory, welcome to the show. Are you there?
Yes, I've always been here.
You've always been here. Welcome to the show. As usual, please tell us where you are and how is the weather where you are.
It's a calm weather here in Brussels.
Okay, brilliant. And my other colleague, Mena. Are you there now, Mena? I think we're just calling him, going to join him to this. Yes, welcome, Mena. Are you there?
Yes, I am, Victor.
Hello. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm all right.
Good. And where are you? And how is the weather where you are?
Oh, yeah, it's a bit dull now, but it was sunny initially.
Okay, dull now and it was sunny before. Okay, so welcome to the show. Dear listeners, this is the spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the grail message by Abdrushin. And we have a new topic every week. The topic for tonight is living an exemplary life. I'll say it again, living an exemplary life. And you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Mena, are you playing the record?
Yes,
the show? Oh, please, yeah. Can you put that on silent? Yeah, because I can hear myself. So yes, and it's not good for the listeners too. So yes, dear listeners. So I'm going to begin with what is the Grail message. The Grail message, in the light of truth by Abdrushin, is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. And I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Abdrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just want to remind you the topic for tonight, it is living an exemplary life. And you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in the UK the number is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Gregory, the first question I would like to ask you for tonight is, what is an exemplary life?
Thanks for that particular question, which I will repeat. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Yeah. What is an exemplary life? Precisely, it is a life which is lived in accordance with the laws through which that individual has come into existence.
When you say individual, the laws that individual, does that mean there are different laws for different individuals? Hello, Gregory, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
When one refers to those laws that individual has come into existence, the laws one is referring to are general. These are the laws of nature. The laws of nature that have always been and were there even before that particular entity or that particular human being or human spirit came into existence. These same laws permeate the different realms. And when one is looking at it, or when one observes these things from the earthly point of view, these laws granted man the innate ability, which is referred to as the intuition. It also granted man the external ability, which man requires as an executive ability, which is referred to as the intellect. As long as one swings with the intuitive perception and also works in harmony with the intellect, then that radiates as an example of what should be done. That is the reference point.
Thank you for that. And I think maybe at this point we should really mention what the laws are, because otherwise it's going to be a bit difficult to sort of talk more about it. So maybe, Gregory, if you can go through those laws. So those laws that brought us into being, like you say, and so we should be familiar with these laws, otherwise how can we become exemplary? So please tell us these laws.
Actually, we are, one way or the other, familiar with these laws, but have ignored them because they are too simple or they are too simplified. For when one considers very carefully that only what one is able to vibrate with, or what one is able to sense, or what one is able to resonate with. The word resonance says it all, which may be reinterpreted in a spiritual sense as an attraction of homogeneity. Wherever we have homogeneity, then we're able to perceive things. So that law of the attraction of homogeneity, which is referred to as resonance intellectually, is a key feature. It moderates things, it selects things, it orders everything. It's as if it's the first order, without which you are unable to perceive things which are similar. So that is the first law, which is named the law of attraction of homogeneous species. The second one, which has to do with reciprocity, in the sense when one gives cost to an activity, then one should be prepared for a reciprocal activity sooner or later. Which sort of activities can be observed, albeit intellectually or non-intellectually. So this law of reciprocal action ensures that a cycle comes into existence once we have an activity being initiated. It means that returns will have to come. For example, if one goes to the farm and plants some crops, those crops do not germinate the same day, but goes through a cycle of growing from the soil, maturing, and when it gets to the end of the cycle, there is the reaping of the crops. That ensures also that there is motion, continuous motion. That cycles at the same time define what time is all about. So these are two key laws which form part of the cornerstone. The third one, which is mentioned, which is closely related to the two, is that of density of densification, which in many instances is referred to as the law of gravitation or spiritual gravitation, which also means that whatever is lighter ascends and whatever is heavier sinks.
Thank you for that, Gregory. So we sort of set up a framework here now to examine, what is an exemplary life. And I sort of rushed you into the laws, and I remember you said early in your first question that there's the intellect and there's the intuition, and they need to work, let's say, in harmony together in accordance with the laws. So I think might be a good idea to, let's say, where does the intuition come from, where does the intellect come from, and how do these things are linked together. So and what can the spirit, the intuition, can do, and what can the intellect do. So if you can tell us how is the intuition, what is the intuition, what is the intellect, how it's meant to work together, in accordance with the laws or laws of nature.
The activity of the intuition, the activity of the human spirit, which is the inner core of man, generates what is referred to as one's intuition. The inner core of man, which is referred to as spirit, is what activates, that is why one is referring to as an activity, is what activates the physical body. In the physical body, we have the intellect. We have the frontal brain and the back brain. The frontal brain is the seat of the intellect. The back brain is the seat through which or where the intuition passes in order to come to the frontal brain. So whenever impressions from the back brain and impressions from the frontal brain are able to work in harmony, whenever we have that scenario, then that forms an example. That is the reference point. Whenever there are problems which have been precipitated, it is because there is a problem between the intuition and the intellect. And in most occasions, it's either the human spirit is so indolent as such that it's unable to assert itself, coupled with that the human brain, the frontal brain, now overexerts itself. It does so in such a way that it's unable to have an overview of all the activities. So the frontal brain is now overdeveloped. Such activities precipitate problems, which problems lead to quagmire. For on the one hand, the human spirit is indolent, or those who are unable to exert themselves very well. On the other hand, we have the overdevelopment of the human intellect. So whenever we have that scenario, we have problems. Otherwise, once they are able to work in harmony, then we have exemplary living.
Thank you again, Gregory, for that. And just to get a little bit more clarification on the intellect, the activity of intellect and intuition, is one meant to lead and the other meant to, let's say, follow instructions? Like, let's say in a computer, there's this programmer, and then there's this, the programmer who makes the software, and the computer uses that software to, take out that, implement the actions. So is the intuition and the intellect, is one of them meant to lead, and the other one to sort of process it and sort of make use of it that way?
The whole picture must be seen and must be grasped properly. That which is alive is the leading one. And that which is alive, in all reality, is the human spirit. So it is the leading one. On the other hand, when it's unable, or for one reason or the other, it doesn't exert itself very well, then we have challenges along the line. On the one hand, we have the inner core, which is the human spirit, being the leading one. And here on it, we have the physical body. The physical body is what enables man to experience here on earth. And as a grace, we have also the human brain. The human brain has the frontal brain and the back brain. The frontal brain is the seat of the intellect. Therefore, like has been described initially, the activities of the human spirit impacts on the back brain. The back brain then transmits it to the frontal brain. The frontal brain is now the executive, like an executive director. The body only responds to the instructions given by the frontal brain. That is how the human spirit is able to send impressions to the body for earthly executions. However, once the human being here has gathered information, it passes those impressions again to the frontal brain, which itself transforms this and passes it back to the back brain. From there, those impressions are transmitted to the human spirit. That is how it's meant to be.
Thank you again for that explanation. I want to go into a little bit more sort of a different look at it in a wider way now. Basically, we say let's say God created the human being, and we say God is perfect, and then how come the human being doesn't seem to be perfect? So what I'm saying is, can all human beings really become exemplary? Or is it just it's like whoever's, I don't want to use the word about survival of the fittest like we did last week with Charles Darwin, because we know that's not a spiritual concept, that's a intellectual concept. And then, when there's love, it's everybody is supposed to be helped, not the strong one only. So my question again is really, the first part of the question would be, if God is perfect, then how come we are not perfect? It doesn't look like we are perfect. So let's look at that one first.
First, let's be grateful that these questions arise so that they can be looked into very thoroughly. One cannot deny that the human being or the human spirit has free will to decide how he or she intends to proceed with its activities. Therefore, in its existence, the free will is an intrinsic feature or property of the human spirit. That being the case, it means that the human spirit may decide how it wishes to proceed. The Creator that has placed this into the human spirit did so with the full wisdom, knowing fully well that the human spirit, if it follows all the helps that have been placed there, is able to cultivate the skills or the talents, is able to allow those talents to come to fruition, because it's allowed to follow its own ways in order to come to completion, which to a large extent is referred to as perfection. The Creator is far removed from what has been assumed so far. The Creator created those primordial beings. It is the activities of the primordial beings, it is from there that the human spirits were precipitated. So it is not a direct creation and being perfect Those who are closest to the perfection are the primordial beings or the prime beings. The human spirit is not a prime being. It came as an after effect of the primordial beings. And if it follows the ways laid out, it will come to cultivate those talents which have been embedded in it. Then it will get to that extent where it has eternal happiness. So it is not right to say that because the Creator is perfect in His creation, creatures who have been granted a free will to come to that perfection according to their own level should be perfect. They have only been granted an opportunity to make themselves perfect, perfect in their swinging, for they have to start gradually. If they were perfect, then ask yourself, why do they have to come out of their realm to experience? There would have been no need for further development if they were already perfect. It is because they are not perfect. That is why they were granted the opportunity to achieve that level of perfection which grants them eternal happiness.
Thank you for giving that comprehensive picture, Gregory. Thank you for that. I'm going to give Mena an opportunity to come in. I just want to tell the listeners before Mena you come in, dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the spiritual discussion program on Tuesday night, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And the topic and if you want to get a copy of the Grail message or get some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is living an exemplary life. Living an exemplary life. If you would like to ask any questions or send any comments, the number to contact us here in UK, the number is 079 444 313 66. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 313 66. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Mena, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I think Gregory has given a very clear picture on how the position of the human spirit in regards to its origin and as to how it claims perfection. The only thing I would like to add that the human spirit or the human germ, the spirit germ in itself is a perfect entity, but it needs to develop its abilities to perfection. That's just what needs to be clarified.
Just so you want to clarify that the spirit germ is actually a perfect entity, only it needs to develop itself. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Now, Gregory, I would like to explore, let's say, something earthly, because we are on the earth, and in a way, and it's just what we see in the news every day with leaders and so on. So maybe, I'll start with this first. Are we, Gregory, meant to look up to leaders and sort of people who are supposedly exemplary? Are we meant to have such examples that we look at and follow? And I'm not talking that leaders are not perfect, but more, is that what we are meant to do?
Well, we have the scenario where there are groups. We have people come together to form communities, and these communities have joined together with other communities to form bigger ones until we have states or countries. And even at a lower level of these communities, there are people who are able to coordinate activities for the benefit of all. And these are the ones which are referred to as leaders. For many times, these individuals are looked up to because they are able to coordinate activities, look out for the safety of those constituents. That is how it's intended. But that has not been how it has manifested. For along the line, what has then happened, many of these who are supposed to coordinate activities with other groups make themselves the lords and only carry out activities for their own benefit, ignoring the welfare of those who look up to them full of trust. Whatever the scenario, the human spirit or the individual that is part of a community is supposed to first look within itself, listen to his or her own intuitions, and make decisions based only on their intuitions that they have been able to recognize, such that they can then compare, or as they move from one activity to the other, they are able to work with others in harmony. Others like them who are striving to develop their own innate abilities. As long as they understand that they are trying to develop their own innate abilities like the other people, then it's only common sense that they need to come together and support, serve together, rather than trying to destroy the other person. It only means there will be honesty. It only means there will be patience. It only means there will be understanding. As long as these qualities are lacking, then some form of one-sidedness occurs. It is not expected that all these individuals are at the same level of maturity. So what one now finds in governments is very different. It is said, by their activities, we will know them. Now, all one needs to do is to examine the activities of these so-called coordinators or leaders to find whether they are worth emulating or worth following.
Thank you for that. And I've got another question very similar to that, which is that, as I said, we don't have to say that somebody has to be perfect, but what about people having a guru or a mentor? Should there be such a thing, that we, like, obviously the children grow up with parents, assuming, in most cases, and the children look up to the parents. But as adults, should we also have a mentor to sort of guide us, and yeah, that's my question.
The question is, what is the so-called guru or mentor supposed to do? You can lead a horse to the river, but you cannot force it to drink. Whoever is the leader or the guru or the mentor, that particular personality has his or her challenges also, just like you have yours. The so-called guru may only advise, like a helper, based on his own particular experiences. It may be that he or she has more experiences due to his exposure internally in his intuitions or to activities here on earth, and therefore he's able to advise. But this piece of advice is only helpful if man examines this advice accordingly. Most of the time, no matter what advice is given, it is rejected. So the question remains, are we supposed to have gurus or guides? There have always been guides. But these guides also manifest in the intuitions of men or in the so-called conscience. What man needs to do is to will aright, strong good volition for that which is right. And if there are gurus around or those who really can help, they are able to emulate it through their activities. How can you say one is a guru and wish to emulate that person when that particular personality has not gone through any challenges? So you have, in theory, someone who sits out there and is called a guru, but that person hasn't overcome any challenges. It's equivalent to you have in certain religious circles some people who are unmarried. They do not know what married life is, yet they themselves want to be gurus to advise what married couples should be going through. That already tells you it's a failure.
Thank you again for that. So, if I were to summarize what you've said, there is basically, in a way, you can take advice, but you must examine the advice and see if it really so rings for you, because otherwise it's like you're being relying on something, and if it's not applicable, you might as well become a robot in a way. So, and of course, yeah, it might work, and also it might not work. But then you're not if you don't examine, then you can't tell that it's really going to be suitable for you or not. So yeah, thank you for that. Again, looking at the modern world today, there's a lot of intolerance at the moment. With people have differing views, different ways of living and behavior, and sometimes you hear this, especially with different countries. They have different beliefs. You can say different, like a way of living, like I say, and sometimes you get this outcry. I'm not going to mention names as such, but you hear it a lot in the news where, let's say, some music megastars go and do a concert in a country where there's, let's say, lack of freedom or lack of so-called human rights, and then people are saying no to the megastar, don't go there, they don't have the same rights as we do. So what, don't go there. You're promoting. If you go there, you'll be promoting their system, which is, the standard of that system is not, let's say, considered acceptable. Maybe that's how I can say. So, Gregory, the question would be: should people, be so strict in their standards that, oh, our standards do not match your standards, so we don't work with you? Should it be like this? Because obviously every country is different, and or let's say, don't even want to say countries, let's say groups of countries. So there are different cultures, there are different, although I don't think this is about culture here, it's more about standards. I'm going to say standards. Some people have more freedom in their country and others are not so much. So should we base our decisions according to the standards? Let's say our standards?
As you rightly perceive, it is most difficult to know the motive behind any standard or any activity. If those motives, that is what motivates, what activates, in quotes, an activity, what lies behind it, the intuitive activity, if those are in accordance with the laws through which they themselves have come into existence, these laws which ensured that there is continuity, which ensures that there is thorough preparation and regards to the individual. If those motives are what is engendered, then it is right. But where is the person who is able to talk about or who is able to perceive the motives behind many a standard or many an activity? None, or very few. So it is very difficult, if not impossible, to say do this or don't do this. The best one may advise is that each individual that intends to sow through deeds or words or whatever, even thoughts, must strive in such a way that what comes out of them is noble. What they are sowing will bring them fruits, which fruits will enable them to rise higher rather than to sink. That is the general advice one may put out there, but cannot say you must do this or must not do this. For the determinant factor is the motive. And once one is able, through the individual's intuitive perception, to sense, to realize what the motive is, then it is possible to take the appropriate action. Otherwise, we have a very impossible scenario.
Thank you for that answer. And following on from what you've said, when you say motive, I mean, most of this reason for control and, let's say reducing or restricting freedom is to have control and power over the people, and obviously in the countries, I don't say democracies are perfect, it's supposed to be the people, deciding what the system they want to have in their country. and other countries where, in a way, there's not a democracy, the ruler, whoever it is, dictator or otherwise, makes the decision for the system of that country. And so, if I say the motive, but even you could say in the democracies, the motive can be also power, because, as we know, at the end of the day, everybody's trying to have power. Otherwise, they can't actually do anything with the, whichever party you are in. Until you have the power, you can't actually implement what you want to implement. So, maybe Gregory, if everybody's motivated by power in all these systems, then it's like a hopeless situation. You might as well not bother with the, I was going to say turn into a recluse and not connect with the community. But that seems also an extreme thing. So how are we meant to do? Are we meant to just work on our own, do the best of ourselves, with ourselves, or can we really work with the, society as well?
As you rightly know, power activates, all right? Allows motion to be realized. If that power is such that it allows the human spirit for self-control, realizing that other individuals need also to experience, such that they will not disturb the experiences of others, such that they can walk in harmony. Harmony is not achieved by one person alone. Whenever we have more than one person, then we can talk of harmony. Just like when music is played, harmony is not discussed with only one tone. Harmony is discussed when we have several tones, and it doesn't mean they have all to be the same. For you may have high notes and low notes, and when played side by side, harmony then results, for it builds up. In a similar sense, when we have the individual who is trying to make decisions and it requires power of self-control to be able to move, to be able to work with others, that individual must realize that it needs to work in harmony with others. That harmony which builds up rather than destroys. That doesn't mean there could be no competition. For even in sports, you have competition and not destruction. For if you now have the scenario of destruction, that means one is removed. And if you have only one person in the world, how can that person then make progress when he or she is supposed to learn from the others? So harmony is required. Even when one seeks power, it should be power over himself. It should be that strength to overcome his or her weaknesses, not the strength to dominate and cause confusion in others, but that power which allows one to have self-discipline, that power which allows one for patience, for understanding, for good deeds. That is the sort of power which the human spirit should be seeking. The power which will allow its intuitive perception first to work in harmony with the frontal brain, the intellect. Only when the human spirit is able to achieve that first exercise, control of the body, control of the self, Only when it has achieved that is it able to extend it to others. For how can you teach others what you yourself do not know? You cannot give to others what you yourself lack, for you don't have it. So if one is asking for power to dominate others, then it means he lacks that necessary discipline to work in harmony with others. So each individual must make it very clear to itself why it's here on earth, what it needs to achieve. For if looked at very carefully, it is such that he or she wishes to dominate others in order to force them to his control, then he should know he has missed one of the key purposes of his existence.
Thank you again, Gregory, for your answer there. Mena, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I was looking at the class order among a group of humans, and which one is superior to the other. And like Gregory did say, is like, they all have to work in harmony and build up on the strengths of each other, rather than one dominating and oppressing the other. I think that's a clear picture.
So just so what would be your question, just to understand that?
No, it's not a question. It's just that
Okay.
the different class orders in a
Yes.
society should work in harmony with each other and make progress among themselves, rather than one dominating the other.
Okay, so you're saying each class needs to develop themselves
Yeah,
within their
yeah,
own class.
yeah. In a way that they make progress in themselves, but not in a way that they oppress the other group. You understand that?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Um, yeah, dear listeners, just want to remind you, you're listening to Bless Radio, and we're on a new website now, blessradio.co.uk, and also you can listen on tunein.com. You need to search for Bless Radio. That's one word, BLESS Radio, 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 Bless Radio on tunein.com. You can listen to us on that. Also, you can listen to on YouTube. You're going on YouTube, you can hear live. Go to youtube.com and then search Bless Radio number 1, the actual number 1. So Bless Radio 1 space live stream. That's one word. Bless Radio 1, the number 1 space live stream. That's you can listen live on that. And after 10 minutes at the end of the show, which finishes at 8 p.m., you can hear a recording. For that, you need to type, again on YouTube only, it is type Bless Radio 1, then space grail message, GRAIL message, MESSAGE, and then the topic of the show. For example, tonight's topic is living an exemplary life. And you can also listen to our previous shows by just typing the first two things, as I say, Bless Radio 1 Grail Message, and you will see other shows that we've had in the past. And I want to remind you that just the topic for tonight is living an exemplary life. And you're welcome to join us in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Gregory, I want to talk on another thing. You can only act according to what you know. So now maybe when you do that, let's say you make a mistake or you do something wrong, and you don't know that because you only act according to what you know, and then the reaction of other people when you do that action, you say, oh, they're angry with you, or you hurt somebody and you can see that you've hurt somebody. That's when you realize, oh, actually I didn't know that. So my question on this is, are we meant to grow through these experiences of making mistakes, you can say, or even doing wrong things? Or is there a way we can sort of be correct from the beginning without making any mistakes? So, or is that something I'm expecting something, let's say, impossible, that a human being will not make mistakes? So, yeah, can we be aware all the time that if we are doing anything wrong or making a mistake, or is that just a silly thing that I'm just sort of some, let's say, false idealism that I'm having?
The best one would say it is a combination of all. For were the human spirit perfect, that means were all those innate talents fully developed, then there will be no need for it to leave its home as an unconscious spirit germ in order to experience. In fact, it would not be unconscious, it would have been conscious. It is because it was in a state of unconsciousness that it needs to travel far where motion is slower, such that it permitted to make mistakes, learn from these mistakes, such that they will not be repeated. To expect that someone who is learning their alphabets or their numerals as a child will already have known all the numerals 1 to 10 will be, will I say, living in a fool's paradise. For now, each person can count from 1 to 10. However, it is very difficult for children who are just starting it. Not all human spirits or spirit gems left paradise at the same time. They left paradise in different waves. And each personality has its own way of learning. There are some who have already mastered, in quotes, the numerals for 1 to 10. There are some who will count 1, 2, and then 5, and then come back to 3. This is allowed for the human spirit learned in bits, in tokens. It takes quite some time. That was why it was granted the opportunity to experience over time. Therefore, it is wrong to expect the human spirit who started as an unconscious spirit gem to have matured in the first try and not to be able to make mistakes.
Thank you for that, Gregory. And to follow on from that, so, I mean, at the beginning of this show, we said there's the intuition and there's the intellect, and the intuition is, let's say, from the spirit, and it's meant to lead and direct, you could say, the intellect to work on this earth. Now, so my question from that is, are we meant to just learn through the intuition, or get the guidance and be active on this earth purely through the intuition, or is there something we have to learn? I know we've just mentioned about learning, but when I say learning, are we meant to look at a spiritual teaching or religious teaching? Is that how we are supposed to grow and develop? Or can somebody just with his own intuition just become a exemplary person?
One thing becomes very clear, that nature itself presents to us objects which we are able to perceive. It also presents to us processes which we are able to perceive. These objects, these processes which nature has provided are like cognitions, because we are able to perceive them and use them. It is the task of the human spirit to move from mere cognitions, which is awareness, to recognition. That means it is the task of the human spirit to find out what lies behind it. The recognition is what opens the way. Above all, the recognition of the laws of creation, all the laws of nature that has presented these cognitions to us, such that before too long, the human spirit is able to be drawn to its home, and beyond the home is able to sense the power that is coming from on high. Then is granted the recognition, for it's always looking up. That is the task of the human spirit. The intuition and the intellect are only tools granted to it to be able to achieve this.
All right.
Thank you.
Gregory, can I ask a question? I mean, I know the program is just, to enable listeners to actually go back to the work and, get a deeper understanding of the grail message, and not for us to, really explain the work itself, because the only way they can get a better picture is just to go to the work itself. Well, can I ask, this concept of perfection, do you see it as a goal of the human spirit? The human spirit, or the spirit gem, left perhaps paradise in order to gain consciousness. I don't think it is a goal of the spirit gem to be perfect. Am I wrong in my understanding, or can you throw more light on
Okay. May you please, can you repeat the question, because I couldn't
that?
get the context.
Yeah. The question is that, is it a goal of a spirit gem to become perfect, or to become self-conscious? Which is it?
So, just a minute. The goal of the spirit gem is to become self-conscious of its responsibilities, such that
Exactly.
it's able to operate back home in paradise, all right, with the full abilities which has been granted to it. In order to do that, like he said, it traveled away from its origin. There, it had, in quotes, no form, not the form of human. So it left there. In the process of becoming aware, it starts acquiring the form of human. In the process of becoming self-conscious, those innate talents now come to fruition, knowing how to control them. So there is a huge difference between that which of the spirit gem, which is basically in quotes formless, to the form, the human spirit. Human is the key there. And then finally to becoming self-conscious. That means the inner core is now fully aware of its tasks and responsibilities. With that in mind, the concept of perfection has to do with, if one remove that word perfection, which is to a largest extent complete.
Yes. Yeah.
When we are looking at completeness, first, there is completeness only when something has come to a a full cycle. It started from somewhere, it now comes back complete. That which it needs to develop, if it has been developed completely, one may say it is perfect to that extent. So there are perfections at different levels. There is earthly perfection. For instance, when you are able to play a piece of music, you can say this is perfect. That means there is a reference. All the notes have been played in accordance with the original. So this is perfect. Without that, you will say, it is imperfect. It means it's still not complete. Something is missing. So when you look at the human spirit or the spirit gem, when it started, it couldn't play any note. By the time it returns, having experience externally, let us say it gets back home and is able to play all the notes and continue to improve, then you say it's perfect at its own level. That is what is required of it at that level. What will be wrong is to expect more perfection as compared to those other primordial spirits who are above it. It is incapable of doing that.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that, Gregory. Yes, again, as you mentioned, there are levels of this perfection on different. They manifest differently. So it's like it's a, how can I say? There may be a simple structure, simple principles in everything, but then they're applying at different levels. So at each level you have to go and understand the material that is in that level and work, make sense of it like that. So thank you for that. Now, Gregory, my question, I don't think you answered it completely, the one before Mena asked, which is about, do we need a spiritual teaching or knowledge, that to guide us as well as our just, or is it just purely our intuition that we can just rely on in our sort of journey of becoming exemplary or become perfect, like you have just mentioned, this becoming spiritually perfect, you could call it. So is there any
spiritual teachings only supplement the intuition, or those spiritual teachings are to help the intuition in the sense that one's intuition has to examine these, in quotes, spiritual teachings. In the process of examination, it exerts itself in order to go deeper. Only then is the spiritual teaching useful. For no matter how good a spiritual teaching is, if not examined, then one is unable to draw the necessary lessons. For how would you know it's good when you do not examine it, when you do not weigh it? So the key thing here is that, yes, spiritual teachings are helpful, but one must examine these teachings not only with one's intellect, but also with one's intuition to the highest possible level, only in such a manner. For when one examines with the Spirit, one is forced to exert oneself to such fine vibrations, such that is able to get the inner core of that teaching. Then, in that self-exertion, one is able to resonate and draw from the power which such a teaching is able to furnish.
Thank you for that, Gregory. And I just want to let the listeners know that there will be a talk on the Grail message, which is the aim of the show, to introduce you to the Grail message. There'll be an introductory talk on the Grail message in London next week on Monday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., Monday the 28th of October, at the Theosophical Society, which is at 50 Gloucester Place, London W1U 8EA, and the nearest underground station is Baker Street. So yes, there will be an introductory talk on the Grail message in the light of truth by Abrushin, held in London on Monday the 28th of October, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Theosophical Society, 50 Gloucester Place, London London W1U 8EA, that's the postcode, and it is near Baker Street station, about 10 minutes walk from there. So if you are interested and are able to get there, that would be, you're welcome to go there. Thank you. I've just received a question from a listener, and I'm just going to read that out. It says, has mankind gone too far in his ignorance to the point that he lives in opposition to the divine laws? How long can this go on? Actually, Gregory, it's a very long question. When I say long question, it's quite a wordy. So I'm just going to read it out first, and then maybe we can break it down. So here we go. So I'll just start the beginning again. Has man gone too far in his ignorance to the point that he lives in opposition to the divine laws? How long can this go on before mankind is lost in utter darkness? Is time running out for humanity before he is able to awaken to the human being he should have been according to the laws of nature? So I don't know if I can really break it down, Gregory, but I'll just repeat it again. Has mankind gone too far in his ignorance to the point that he lives in opposition to the divine laws? How long can this go on? Shall I start with that?
No.
Because it's a...
What one wishes to say here is that the divine laws have made provision for activities in creation. And these activities also are in nature, or manifest in nature, and also manifest here on earth. These divine laws have created these processes, which processes ensures that there was preparation for the earth to come into existence. The earth, which belongs to the material sphere or the world of matter. The world of matter has its own span of existence, and all that is in it have their own spans of existence. Therefore, there is the process of coming into being in the world of matter because it is temporal. There is the process of there is the part where there is germination in the world of matter until it comes to fruition or maturity. And then subsequently, it returns to its primeval substance or primeval element, a process which may be referred to as disintegration. It is hoped that the human spirit gem that has come to mature in this world of matter would have acquired the necessary maturity and would have left the world of matter, of which the earth is a part, would have left the world of matter before we have this disintegration. If, however, the human spirit has, or through its own ignorance, is unwilling to sever itself for nobler things, so as to ascend away from the world of matter and move further towards home, it stands the chance that when this integration arises in the world of matter, it is caught within it and it is crushed for the experiences it has gathered up till then are not in accordance with the laws of nature that would have permitted it to go back home as a self-conscious spirit gem. Therefore, such a human personality is crushed and it loses those experiences it has gathered, for they are of no use back home in paradise. It therefore loses its form, the form of the human which it has acquired. It therefore reverts back to the spirit seed grain or seed gems, back to paradise. That means each time the opportunity granted it was wasted by it, the human spirit.
Okay.
Therefore, it is not forever, and the time to acquire the knowledge is now. And that is why we have the walk in the light of truth, the grail message, which acts as a beacon or as a marker, a light, to use it most practically as a map which explains the processes and shows how the human spirit needs to move in order to escape in such a way that the experiences it has gathered will be useful and may go back home as a self-conscious or a fully matured human spirit.
Yeah. Thank you, Gregory. The questioner, I think it did, is asking, how would man going against divine laws? And we're looking at that. If you look at the activities of man in the world today, many of them are actually in search of, um, the truth, or let me say divine knowledge. and you can see the activities mostly on Saturdays or maybe in religious groups as they troop in these centers. Do you think men are not doing enough in going to churches and these other religious centers around the world? What more do they need to do in order to really, gain this divine knowledge? What you recommend?
Again, thanks for this particular question. On the one hand, the teachings of religion are assumed to be the same as the teachings the human spirit require in the case of spirituality. Religiousness is not synonymous with spirituality. On the one hand, that which is of spirit uses its free will, uses its intuitive perception to examine all that it comes across. That which is referred to as religion, does it examine with its intuitive perception? Is he able to look at the different parts of all the religions and make a decision? For when they came into existence, they did not come into existence through a religion. They came into existence through the grace granted by the laws which have been woven into creation. First, looking at it from the earthly parts, by the laws of nature, for man is familiar with nature. Above nature are the laws of creation. Above creation are the divine laws. It is these divine laws that manifest in creation and manifest in nature. And that was why one gave the example that nature provides the cognitions. It is the task of the human spirit to strive a way to move from not only what nature has provided, but to come to a recognition. It is the task of the human spirit to recognize, to find the motive behind what it has experienced in nature in order to ascend step by step and to go back home to paradise. The question now is, does religion, the way these things are practiced, does that afford man the opportunity when many of the utterances, many of the things which are put forward violate these same very laws of nature, which is supposed to assist them back home? It now devolves on the human spirit to find out that which harmonizes with the laws of nature and that which does not. It has to move from belief, which it holds without examination, to conscious examination. That means it has to become convinced indeed, convinced in all reality. One may go into religion and listen to all the sermons and then ask, is it possible for the Lord Almighty to act in such arbitrariness, as many religions have put it. For the works of the Lord are consistent. When it is referred to in divine ordinance, it means divine order. Order, I said, is the first law in heaven. Not arbitrariness, not disorder. Disorder you will find in the activities of man, and that only occurs because it is confused. And that only occurs because it has refused to examine. Then how can it then rise?
Thank you, Gregory, again for your answer. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And if you're interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want to get more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is living an exemplary life. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. And just to remind you, we are now broadcasting on a new website, which is blessradio.co.uk. And on TuneIn, we are, if you go to tunein.com, you need to search for Bless Radio, one word, Bless Radio. And if you also want to listen, you can, another channel which is YouTube, youtube.com. Search for live broadcasts. You go to Bless Radio 1, the number 1, Bless Radio 1, space live stream. And if you want to listen to the recording of the show, of this show, you can listen after 10 minutes. The show ends at 8 o'clock. Just search for, again on youtube.com, search for Bless Radio, the number 1, and then space Grail message. And then the topic for the show, of that show, tonight's show, is living an exemplary life. And also you can listen to our old recordings with the same search, Bless Radio 1, Grail message, and whatever the title of the previous shows are.
Yeah. Gregory, can I quickly ask, if you walk into a religious setting today, could like a church or any place of worship, there is always that sense of, inner satisfaction that I'm doing the right thing. If man lives with that conviction that I am doing the right thing, yeah, I go to church and I dance and, I'm satisfied. What should man really be looking for in worshiping? I mean, worshiping and, in fact, I'm going to church, and is that thought that, yes, I'm doing the right thing, a good one? Because we are looking at, living an exemplary life, and many people who actually go out each Sunday come back to their homes fulfilled. Yes, I've done it. Are they not right? Do you think they should not, praise themselves, reward themselves for being exemplary?
Self-satisfaction is the greatest problem for man. For they have been to church, but were they alive in church? To be alive only means to listen to one's intuition and not disregard the intuition. Long time ago, even now, you still find many who took others into slavery and consider themselves to be master. And they went to church or to mosque or wherever they wished to go. They went there. They were self-satisfied. They never examined whether the states which they claim they were is right in accordance with the laws through which they themselves came into existence. They never, through examination, had personal conviction. Yet they were self-satisfied that they have done what they were supposed to do. Even in biblical writings, there was a scenario where the Pharisees of those days went to a place of worship. Oh Lord, I thank you that I am not like one of those, all right, so-called poor ones. Not for nothing did Christ give the example of the Good Samaritan. For a human spirit who is always longing to go home, who, when he finds a fellow human spirit from his hometown or her hometown, without asking questions, wants to walk in harmony with that personality because they have left their hometown, they have arisen from a particular hometown, and they can already sense something common for they have come to experience. Deep within the human spirit lies that longing of home as they are making progress for self-realization. That should already tell them that whenever you find another human spirit, which abound in all places, then like brothers or sisters, one should walk in harmony, since they all can sense they have arisen from the same realm. But what has happened? Sectarianism. They tie themselves to this teaching which they haven't examined to gain personal conviction and to that teaching. And they expect to be praised. They expect the Lord whom they claim to worship or to be factual. They expect the Lord to grant them the power so that they can make progress materially, not progress spiritually. For that which is of spirit is different, requires much more than what the intellect demands. That which is of spirit demands perpetually good volition, perpetual patience and understanding, perpetual support in thoughts, perpetual good deeds. Yet they themselves are not yet capable of doing this. Yet they are self-satisfied. On the long run, such a personality, when he or she then passes on, will find the manifold opportunities that were granted to be able to assist others. Assist others in the sense that they themselves, they were a whole chain of helpers who were always assisting him. And it was his duty to also assist others, so that that chain will be very tight. But what has happened? Self-satisfaction. They have severed that chain, which chain is supposed to help in pulling them up. All what is discussed now can be better understood in the walk in the light of truth. For, like we've always stressed, these are only tokens. The human spirit needs to examine continuously, not only listening to his intuition, not only making use of what the intuition has provided, but even externally, whatever it has come across, is supposed to examine it. First, take it in and pass it on to the Spirit for the Spirit to examine properly and allow the returns to come back. In such a way, as long as it has the good volition, it will be directed to those places where those places that will be of benefit to it. For it should know there is guidance everywhere. Help abounds, but he himself or herself must first seek diligently for that help. And then that help will manifest to it. That help which will strengthen it and know what its tasks are. That is the purpose of the discussions like this which we have, such that each person, whether they go to a church or a mosque or a temple, wherever they are, whether in quotes they say they are animistic worshippers, whatever they care to do, to examine that, to make sure deep within them they are alive.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Mena, you were talking about people going to church, but there's also people who are atheists, you can say, who are living exemplary life in the sense of they may not even be, spiritual as we consider them, but let's say they do respectable things. They care about people, and tell the truth. Things that you expect from the so-called religious people or leaders. There are atheists who do that as well. So, Gregory, my question on that is then, what do we consider about such people who are, let's say, also living exemplary life, but they don't, let's say, believe in the Creator, but they want to, let's say, they call them humanist, I think. They basically care about humanity, but not, well, they just don't believe in the Creator, let's say. So, is that, and they live, we could call it exemplary life. So, Gregory, is there something you could say? Are those people in are also considered? Would they be considered that they're living in an exemplary way? I mean, exemplary on the outward sense, for sure they are good people, as I say, being respectable, being honest, helping people. Is that considered also as living an exemplary life, or is there something missing?
Well, again, thanks for this sort of questions. And exemplary. And we had stressed that the life which is exemplary is that life in which there is the cooperation between the human intuition and the human intellect so as to accomplish certain tasks which the spirit itself has set out. That sort of reference exemplary life as seen from the spiritual, not as seen from through other people. The persons or the type of person you just mentioned, they call themselves atheists. That means these are people who do not have an idea or do not believe in a creator or in a source of power. Yet they themselves always acknowledge that they did not create themselves. Yet they acknowledge that there is power. This power which activates all that they themselves have come to know in nature. These are not denied. All they have done is they have been unable to move from these cognitions which nature has provided to the recognitions which opens the path for them to move further. At the same time, they have rejected some of the caricatures, which caricatures have been presented from some religious views. They do not agree with these caricatures because these caricatures are not consistent with their inner sensing. Should one write them off? Of course, no. But it is they, through their inner activities, that will have to reckon with the facts, with the weavings of creation. It is not for us to look at them and pass any judgment, for we ourselves have enough on our plates to deal with, to contend with. They themselves need to contend with what they hold or do not hold. So it is well and good to say, oh, they are concerned with human activities and they show all this. The question is, what is the motive? You do not know the motive. I do not know their motive. The best one can do is to wish everyone well. So to say because, oh, this person is an atheist, that is the way they understand it now. Many an atheists, so-called, with one or two experiences shaken to their depths, will open up. But the openings which we now talk about is different from the openings which many of the so-called religious people do. For many of the religious people may do so in such a way that it is contradictory. They expect all sorts of arbitrariness, whereas the so-called person who is an atheist, may open up, but refuses to understand that the power that runs through nature, that runs through creation, has a source. The best one can do is to wish everybody well.
Thank you again for that, Gregory. Maybe you don't have to go in response to this thing, what I'm going to say. These atheists are believing things what they can see materially or physically, and they don't want to believe something which they cannot see. And so, because that's like not provable for them. So, I'm just making that as a possible
But again, that is not right, because here we are discussing, I'm here in Brussels, you are there in London, and the waves that we use to communicate, no one can see these waves with their physical eyes. Yet, the effects of the wave are discernible, which the atheists themselves agree with. So the effects of the power are discernible, which they themselves cannot deny because they are emblematic. All right, they show through their activities that yes, this power is. All they have refused to do is to acknowledge the source of this power.
Thank you again for that, Gregory.
Yeah.
Now, I want to another thing to talk about people who are leaders, or let's say in the public eye, and although I know we don't like to be too much specific, but I'm sure you have heard of Prince Harry and his wife Meghan. They've had an interview recently where they, feel attacked by the press, and in a way they're so guarding their privacy, because yes, they're public and they also have a private life, and at the same time they're feeling the pressure, you could say, of being in the public eye, and they want to keep certain things in private. And so what I want to ask you, Gregory, can somebody who's in public life really express themselves and be free, because they're always under scrutiny with this press, and and if there's something, let's say they do something in quotes wrong or make a mistake, this is what is highlighted in the news, and it's never forgotten. This is what they this is the headline news if somebody makes a mistake, or makes a wrong judgment, let's say. And don't forget, they're still growing, they're young still, and they're growing, learning, you could say, even though they're, I'm sure, very well briefed about how to be in the public, but everybody, it can be making mistakes. So Gregory, would you say when you are in such public life and under such intense pressure of scrutiny, can one really be themselves?
Each human spirit or individual needs their own space in order to mature. In that space, they are able to learn many things and perfect that which they need to perfect. If, however, the light is always shown on them with suggestions so as to make them take the wrong step, then such is wrong. For those people who subject other persons to such activities, they themselves will also need their own space in order to learn from. They do not show respect for their for other human spirits who need some space in order to mature. Whether they're in the public eye or not is immaterial. Respect should be shown to all. Putting some others under pressure because you want to sell your newspaper may be equivalent to putting their own children under pressure because others want to sell newspapers. As with everything, there should be measured response. One should be careful so as not to cause so much confusion in those people who, like the press, or whatever they call themselves, are trying to mature in their everyday life. That is where the problem has always been. Always trying to find faults so it can be magnified. And if faults are not found, they can be invented and sold out and say, this person said this. So much is going on nowadays. And therefore, each person has to be doubly watchful for the times in which we stand.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Go
sorry,
on, Mena.
Gregory. Yeah, can I quickly ask, do people not have a responsibility to attract attention? I mean, yeah, is there any responsibility attached to anyone who, by his stance, it could be by his beauty, attracts attention to itself?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah,
Because I don't get the
there any
essence.
responsibility? Is there any responsibility to any person who attracts, attention to itself?
Everybody attracts attention from one point or the other, from one age to the other. Attraction, the attention in the search is such that people look up to a particular person to be able to learn from that person. But it doesn't mean that because you look up to that person, that personality has matured to such an extent that you can learn from. Although one can still learn from their errors, because in quotes, the person is up there. So it will be wrong to say because one is in a particular position, say as a distinguished scientist, and therefore he or she cannot make a mistake, or because he's a prince, he or she cannot make a mistake and must be reported. After all, it was shown that the likes of Einstein divided by 0. So, if with all the brains which the human spirit or people assigned to him, he can still divide by 0, which a child would not do, why can't a priest make an error?
Okay.
Thank you again, Gregory. We've come to the end of our show, listeners. So before we go, I just want to remind you that there's a talk on the Grail message in London this coming Monday or next week Monday on the 28th of October at the Theosophical Society. It's at 7 p.m. To 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Theosophical Society, 50 Gloucester Place, London W1U 8EA, and it's about 10 minutes walk from Baker Street. So you are welcome to attend that to discover more about the Grail message there, and of course you can ask questions there too. Yes. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Hello?
Yes, I'm asking if there's anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye.
I wish them a good week.
Thank you for that. And Mena, anything you'd like to say to the listeners?
Yeah. Yes, please go to the Grail message and learn more, and have a good week ahead.
Thank you, Mena. And dear listeners, thank you for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed the show. I think it was lively discussion. And of course, we'll be back next Tuesday as usual from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with another new topic. We'll let you know that when we start the show. We always like to discover it ourselves. So yes, have a great week, and please do examine the Grail message as my colleagues have been advising you. You can go to this website if you like to find out as well, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that www.grail message message.com. And we look forward to you to joining us for next week with another topic. All the best, everyone. God bless.